A little bit more volume on the mic. Is that possible? Well, on behalf of Nick's family, Peggy, Ed, Joanne, we want to thank you all for being here today. This is a wonderful community to see. My name is Cameron Highsmith. I met Nick playing kickball through Peggy and Joey and so many other people, and yeah, it is a day to be here. I'm going to speak a little bit more later, but for now, I'm going to introduce Kristen and Ed, who are going to take their time speaking. So please give them your attention.
Good afternoon. Nice to see all of you. I wanted to say before I read this, it's okay to cry. I think people may have gotten a head start on that. It's also okay to laugh. I am positive Nick would be laughing maybe already and definitely by the third sentence. So see if you could do that too. Nicolas Bracken Allen Crowe was born in Chapel Hill, North Carolina on April 28, 1984. Do this? How's that? Okay, now we're doing it. Thank you. All right, now we're ready. He moved to Little Rock with his family when he was 3. New to the neighborhood, he made himself known by escaping his house and gleefully running naked across the Rocky Court cul-de-sac. That's your cue. That's your first cue. Come on. He was son to Joanne Bischoff and to Ed Crowe, the best driver in the world, a gift Nick inherited. He was kid brother to Ben Crowe and later to his wife, Kristen. Favorite uncle to James and Charlotte, his southern peach. He was nomad Nick to grandparents Bill and Joy Bowen, and later honey to Joy when she moved to Little Rock. That was supposed to be a good southern honey, if you didn't catch it. Growing up, he spent time with his grandparents Walter and Mary Crowe in Somerville, Mass., and later in Siesta Key, Florida, and with his favorite Uncle John and Aunt Kathy and cousins Dan and Andrew Musto in Sarasota, Florida. And sometimes he was also joined by his cousin Becky Crowe. As they do, the dimple-cheeked boy grew up and he graduated from Catholic high school in 2002, a charming, handsome young man. He attended college at the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville in Little Rock. He was a loving husband and protector and fellow adventurer to his wife, Peggy Cosgrove, whom he married in 2022. He was dog father to Kobe and to Lula. Friends since they were 12, Nick and Peggy reconnected to build a wonderful life together with theme parties, couples costumes, and camping trips, very often surrounded by their friends. His athletic prowess was on display every kickball season. Ask Cameron about that later. And his competitiveness at every game night. They had a true partnership. Nick would ask Peggy, how into this are we? And then he would dive in head first when Peggy said, we're into it. Together they were joyful. They lived life. When he passed, he was home in every sense of the word with Peg and their dogs. That's the hardest sentence. All right. The thing about Nick is that he's always been Nick. What you see is what you get. As a toddler, he had the dexterity to put an olive on each fingertip and the palate to enjoy eating them off one by one. He had the determination to climb the refrigerator. None of you kids should do that ever. Where from his mount, he ate his spoils from the cookie jar. To the delight of his brother and his brother's friends, he would stand on a chair in the kitchen and make them all grilled cheese sandwiches. His love of music started early with the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, including his favorite song, Time of My Yife. Look it up if you don't know what that is. Listen to it on the way home. As an adult, Nick loved good food and drink, no matter the meat sweats. He loved music, especially Fish, and especially Fish Live. He traveled the country to see maybe 40 Fish shows with his friends and with Peg. In fact, Nick was a frequent traveler throughout his life, starting when he was a kid on his 20-plus hour drives to Florida and Massachusetts where he ate Pringles and drank Sprite on the hot summer days in his grandparents' house, windows closed, no air conditioning. You gotta know he really loved that. He saw Europe as a young man. He visited his family, however far flung, his father and his father's wife, Rena Subotnick, in Washington, D.C., his brother and cousin and their families in Cambridge and Boston, Mass., his uncle and aunt in Sarasota, Florida, and his cousin and family in Miami, Florida. He and Peg took many trips together all over the U.S. Type B to her type A, he taught her that the best part of traveling is not the destination, but what you do along the way. Traveling Nick was a wanderer who embraced spontaneity over itineraries. In BA, announced himself most days as the almost every sports superfan that he was, wearing hats, t-shirts, shorts, socks, jackets, and shoes. Of his favorite teams, the Hogs, the Tar Heels, and the Travelers. He had an encyclopedic knowledge of sports and sports history. He would watch any sport on TV, and that includes golf, but he especially loved attending sporting events in person. He saw many Razorback football games, and he convinced his best friend, Sean Henson, wherever you are, to get, yes, thank you, to get season tickets to the Razorbacks basketball games. He and Peg were regulars at Travelers games, and on trips they very often attended sporting events from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Miami Heat and the little-known Amarillo Sod Poodles. In 2020, his lifelong dream was realized when he stood on the court at the Dean Dome with his Uncle John and cousin Dan after a UNC versus Duke game. To have known Nick is to know these things about him. He was fiercely independent from a young age, stubborn even. He was the most fun. He loved to tell stories, to laugh, and to make everyone else laugh. He was passionate and louder than life, emphasis on the loud. He often quoted movies. He had a big, generous heart, and he was loyal. His friends were paramount to him. He loved babies and kids and taking after his mother. He loved dogs too. He kept up a years-long text conversation with his brother that was indecipherable to anyone else. He ran hot, air conditioning on high in the summer, shorts in the winter. He enjoyed crossword puzzles, Wordle, Chickenfoot, and books about U.S. history. He had strongly held convictions. UNC is better than Duke. There's no reason to put an H in Nicolas. It's not Nicholas, as he liked to say. And go Hogs. He hated cancer, slow drivers, low water pressure, and dinosaur overalls and family portraits. One year he saved Christmas, and that would make a great movie. Thanks.
That was awesome.
Oh, wait.
Do I need this? Or
Right.
Oh. Let's see what to do with this. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick's dad. Apparently, we looked enough like each other that you won't be surprised by that. I really want to say, between tears, thank you all for what you've been and what you've meant for Nick over the years, and for being here today to celebrate him and to support us. Sean Henson, profoundly grateful to you for the years of friendship with Nick and for staying with him in some of the toughest hours of his life. In the lightest and darkest moments of Nick's life on this earth, Ben was always there for his brother, as he is today. In fact, that bond was formed even before Nick's birth. Ben and I spent many an afternoon inventing names, boys' and girls' names, and proposing them to Joanne. We didn't know whether we were going to have a boy or a girl in 1984, so we often paired names together. One of our favorites was Stan, if the baby was a boy, and Stanette, if it was a girl. Joanne had the good sense to ignore us. So he became Nicolas without an H, Bracken to honor Joanne's mother and her grandmother, and Alan to remember, excuse me, our dear Chapel Hill friends, Alvin, Jenny, and Anna, where Nick was born. Joanne had then and always kept her mother's love for Nick as a champion and protector every day of his life. Kristen, I'm glad you reminded us of the grilled cheese years in Little Rock. Above all, that was really about the bond of love between two brothers. And then there's the dinosaur outfit. Nick always maintained that the two most traumatic events in his life were having to wear that dinosaur suit in family pictures and the afternoon in Little Rock that Ben and his friend tried to stuff him into the clothes dryer while his loving father laughed his head off. Nick's life as a sports superfan is well known to everyone in this room, and it can't have happened any other way. Could it be mere coincidence or some random alignment of the stars that this baby with the initials NBA Crowe became the almost every sport fan that he was all his life? On one occasion, in fact, when I made a visit to Little Rock, no apparent real sports were available for our viewing pleasure. So Nick and I watched the National Axe Throwing Championship. To see Nick and Peggy together is to understand what love is. Let me say that again, maybe without tears. Peggy said spontaneous crying was allowed. To see Nick and Peggy together is to understand what love is. It has been Peggy's love for Nick, her knowledge and tenacity as a healthcare professional, and her determination to be his protector, his lover, his friend, that gave him years on this earth that would not have happened without him. When Nicholas Bracken Allen Crowe was born on April 28, 1984, Joanne, Ben, and I announced his arrival to the world in words that are actually, I saw on the table as we came in. So, again, with tears, be music night, that his sleep may go where angels have their tall, pale choirs. Be a hand, see, that his dreams may watch thy guidesman touching the green flesh of the world. Oh, be a world and a throne, God, that his living may find its weather. In the souls of ancient bells, in a child's book, shall lead him into thy wondrous house. Thank you.
Well, I've already been introduced. Of course, I'm Nick's older brother, and the famous dryer story was already mentioned. So I'll skip over the many other tortures that I inflicted on him, but I would like to say that made him tough, and made him a fighter, and made him the courageous person that we all love. So my brother wasn't a particularly religious person, although some of us know that he could swing a thurible like nobody's business, even when he was a kid. He was like a streak of lightning. Thanks, Dad. And he lit up everything. And I just want to say that even though he wasn't a religious person, Nick was all the reason I've ever needed to believe in God. Thanks.
You did fine, baby. You did fine.
I invite us all to take a moment and close our eyes together. But before we close our eyes, I want to acknowledge all the emotions that are present here. No matter what you're feeling, everything is appropriate. Whether tears are falling down our face or when we close our eyes, you think of the goofiest ass memory of Nick and you laugh, that's appropriate. If you're angry, that's appropriate. All emotions are fine here, are welcome here. There's no such thing as an inappropriate feeling in this moment. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and sit with your emotion, feel them in your body, and acknowledge them. So I know Nick through playing kickball. When our good friend Joey and I founded our team, we had Peggy on the team already, and she brought in Nick when they got together. And yeah, firecracker, lightning rod, very appropriate. I was telling somebody outside, there were multiple times where later in the day after some drinks had been had, that there were times where we had to hold Nick back when he thought there was a bad call. I was like, Nick, that guy's going to kill you. Hold on, man. It was that face right there. That's the face. That's how I'm going to remember Nick every time. This bright presence, this beautiful person who was always willing to party, of course, but also be willing to be present with his friends. When I was driving down from Eureka Springs yesterday, I was listening to this album by Drive-By Truckers. I don't know if Nick liked them, but I do. And it had the song World of Hurt on there. And Patterson Hood is talking, he's doing his speak, singing kind of thing. And in this song, he says, I was talking to my 83-year-old friend Paul, who told me to love is to feel pain. And there ain't no way around it. The people who we love, the people who we care about, through all the joyous times and the middle times, there will be pain. Relationships end one way or another, whether they're romantic, familial, or friendship, they have to end. And sometimes we're in these moments together where we don't want that. The second quote that I've been thinking of all week is, grief is love with no place to go. For well over a week now, I've been grieving my friend Nick. Because without him, my love doesn't have a place to go. The grief will be long-lasting. It will stay around. There will be moments where I'm not crying, and there will be moments where I can't stand up. Grief is love with no place to go. When we get to grieve together, when we get to be together, we have temporary places for that love to go. It's not where it's supposed to be. Because now there's the thought of every time that my friends and I get on the kickball field, who the hell am I going to hold back? Who am I going to make double plays with? Who am I going to take a Jell-O shot with when other people are saying, maybe you've had too much? There are going to be times in spring ball when I'm sitting there by myself watching the Razorback baseball games on my phone instead of having him there with me. There have been times where we've been in the dugout together watching these games, yelling at the SEC umpires, as any good fan should do, and our teammates being like, what happened on the field? Well, it's not that field, it's this field. There's one less person for me to get in trouble with. One less person for me to crack really inappropriate jokes with. One less person whom I love dearly. I don't know what Nick believed. I have my own beliefs about what happens when we finish this mortal life. But I do know that as long as we remember that goofy ass face, right here and in here, Nick's alive. Every single time we shed a tear or crack up in inappropriate laughter, Nick's here with each and every one of us. From this moment on, Nick somehow, some way will continue to live. I can tell you this is the third time I've done this for one of our kickball teammates. One time just a month ago. I'm not going to let any of them leave. One way or another, Nick will be with us from here until we're done. So we're going to watch a slideshow here in a moment. After that, you're all invited to hang out for as long as you want or until the venue kicks us out. Share inappropriate stories. Cry together. And when you do these things, I want to challenge you to do one thing. Don't be ashamed of your tears. Don't wipe them away. You can wipe your snot away if you get a little snotty. That's fine. Don't wipe your tears away. Like I said last month for all the people who were there, these tears are remembrance. Let them fall for Nick. Let's let them fall for each other. They're tears of love and tears of care. So we'll start the slideshow for everybody to watch, and then you will be invited again to get really sloppy if you need to, because I think Nick would like that. But hold on, I forgot. Let's raise our drinks. If you have them. If not, an empty fist is fine. I don't know most of y'all. But in this moment, I love you because Nick loved you. Cheers.